Zayomi Olugbenro is my guest, and we're talking, he's also the partner, tax partner at Deloitte. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
Thank you so much, and Happy New Year, Jeffrey. Good
Happy
to be here.
New Year to you. I almost wanted to say, since I saw your name as tax partners, I almost wanted to say this is your year. Like we say it in Nigeria.
Well, this is the year for Nigerians, so that's what we'll expect.
There's a lot being expected. And now the Nigerian Tax Administration Act, Nigerian Tax Act, is in full force. In fact, what a lot of Nigerians have been spending their time doing the last year is to see how they can manage narration in their account. So let's begin let's just begin broadly within this. What are we looking at in 2026 now that this tax law is in force? A lot of let me say, people are saying, government, we don't trust you.
Yep.
You are stressing us.
Yeah.
You are collecting too much and we're not seeing what you're using the money for.
Yep.
The government says, no, we're actually trying to make you have more money in your pocket.
Yep.
What do you see? What is the truth? What is in between?
Well, I think it started on a very important note, the issue of trust. And it was central to all the debate and the conversation that happened when the Tax Reform Act were being discussed. It was quite interesting to hear that even when there were narratives being shaped to say, look, this is not your typical tax legislation, or the kind of expectation that you should have when you hear the taxman is coming. That this particular one has got some bit of touch that will provide relief and succor to Nigerians. People took that with a pinch of salt, and which really is the issue of trust that you mentioned. But 2026 is upon us. The law is now fully in effect. I'm hoping that as the implementation starts, and those who are supposed to benefit, the tax breaks that has been promised for SMEs, the reduction in taxes for individuals that are, like in the middle class, the full exemption to those who are really at the lower end of the ladder. By the time they get their first month's salary, this January, someone should be able to say, last month and last year, this was exactly how much I pay in taxes, and then just by the reason of the changes in the tax law, at least to those that are supposed to benefit from the tax break, my net take-home had increased by X amount. Now, when that happened and it is sustained, maybe the narrative will change, and those who are really supposed to contribute a lot more, the upper class, also feel the pinch, and we begin to see the balance, the relief to the poor, and the higher contribution we're expecting from the high net worth individuals. So maybe the narratives will change organically by itself, but it's going to be a long journey. People really need to see and feel and touch before they really can believe the story. And that, unfortunately, that's where we're at. That's where we've gotten ourselves to this country.
Our first measure of assessment will be by 31st of January for those who collect their salaries within the month that they're supposed to be paid. So people that are exempted from taxes, that maybe they earn less than $1 million or 800,000 in a year, they should see a net increase. Net increase means that if their net take-home after deduction used to be 70,000.
Yep.
Now they should be able to see 73 or 75,000.
That's what I expect. That's what should happen, provided that they haven't paid taxes, before. So if you have been paying taxes before and you fall within the bracket of those who are supposed to have full exemption, so there's a payback to you. There's a clawback of that taxes, and that should literally flow into your net pay. If you are within, those who are supposed to have reduction, because, again, apart from those who are having full exemption, because of the change in the tax band, what you have is that there's been a significant reduction even in taxes payable by those who are, like earning maybe close to 20 million naira per annum, unless chances are that depending on where you sit, on that spectrum, there will be some reduction in your taxes, and reduction in your taxes means your net take-home pay should increase. That's what we'll expect. And in the same vein, for those who are earning significantly higher, the expectation is that the tax deduction by the end of January will begin to see the increase, and that's what will happen. That's on the individual personal income tax side. But the same way also for businesses. you've had all the conversations around what happens to the VAT. Where therefore some of the deductions, the input tax credit that you were not able to claim in your business because they were not deductible or they were not allowable based on the old law, with the new law coming into effect, you now have the opportunity to claim deduction for all those input VAT on your overhead, on your expenses, and that should also affect the cash flow for the business.
Let me ask you an express question.
Yes, please.
Is the taxman going to ask you for every kobo that is in your account? I'm asking what is on the streets.
Yeah.
I know a few things.
Yeah.
So I'm asking generally now. Because people are saying from next year.
Yeah. From this year.
From this year. With fiscalization, the taxman you're going to be accountable for monies in your account.
Yeah.
Is that what this is really all about?
That's not
is it as straightforward as that?
It's not as straightforward as that, and it's not as quick as that. Now, in Nigeria, what we operate is a self-assessment system.
What does that mean?
So, which means every individual will by himself or herself calculate the amount of taxes that you think, you owe government, either in your business or as an individual. And if you're the one that is employed, and you have an employer who is, running that obligation for you, the employer do the calculation of what your taxes should be and pay it over to the government. Now, that's what happens over time. The whole of this idea of the government or the taxman being able to check your account or come back, that's not what starts from day one. Anywhere in the law, anywhere in the world, because it's a self-assessment system, the tax authority also needs to have a mechanism to validate, to check that indeed, if you have paid 10,000 naira in taxes, it is really 10,000 naira that you should pay. And they have different ways of doing this. Now, what they're going to use based on all of this automation and infusion of technology and making sure that your tax ID is linked to your NIN and your BVN and all of this conversation is that over time, the tax authority is then able to have access to data that then enables them to say, Mr. Jeffrey, you've paid 10,000 naira, reporting this X amount of income, but from what we could see on your revenue profile, we could see that you earn significantly more, and this is how much your taxes should be. At that point, it's not even going to get to the government debiting your account. So this is a taxman saying, I have a different fact that counters the information you have provided to me. Can you please explain why 10,000 naira? I want that. So that conversation
hold your thoughts on that. We're going to build on that because that is where the biggest argument, or one of the biggest argument is.
Okay.
Mr. Oyedele has explained over and over. It looks like it's not sinking in. And he keeps doing those explainers.
It's not just not willing to take the fact.
Nobody wants their money collected. So let me give you that breaking news. We'll be right back after this break with Mr. Olugbenro as he breaks it down for us. The tax laws have officially taken effect. Let's help educate you on what you need to know in case you're not familiar. That's why the man from Deloitte is here. Stay with us. Welcome back, Mr. Yomi Olugbenro is a tax partner at Deloitte. He's helping us make sense of the new regime of tax in Nigeria. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Pleasure.
As quickly as possible, you're explaining a few things. But in addition to that, you and I were talking about the fact that it's not as if Nigerians are unwilling to pay taxes.
Correct.
Sometimes it's about when they suffer and grind and hustle, as we call it, and finally pay these taxes. Some persons in government who haven't worked a day in their life, or we can't trace anything they've done to make any reasonable money, are living larger than life and using their money, spending it wastefully, convoluting it by the moral hazard of unintelligent expenditure.
Right.
Help us harmonize that position.
No, I totally agree. And just to land on the point I was making earlier, that the whole idea of the taxman coming at you or debiting your bank account, beyond all of the levels and processes that still needs to happen, if that ever happens at all, there's quite a lot that will happen in the, between now and when that will ever materialize. All right? You've done your self-assessment. The Revenue Authority is supposed to have data to be able to validate, that you've declared accurately. If you haven't declared accurately, they would definitely ask you questions. All right, to say, oh, please explain. And that process of explaining and defending happens. And on quite a number of cases, if you have truthfully declared your income, all that is required for you to explain whatever is the differential or whatever the revenue authority, is asking. That's for those who are supposed to pay. I'm not talking about
those who are exempted.
People who are already exempted anyway.
The way I like to drive it home, sorry,
yes.
Mr. Adubenro,
yes.
let's use figures and example.
Right.
So give us somebody who's supposed to pay, an individual.
Right.
Who has to explain to the ombudsman.
Correct.
And then another person who runs a company.
Right.
Just if you can do it in 2 minutes.
Okay.
A clear example, use figures.
So currently you have people who earn roughly 800,000 or even $1 million, because when you do the math, people earning close to $1 million naira or 1.2 million naira, currently, they're not going to pay taxes based on the way the tax table annually and based on what the exemption it's saying. Now, but assuming what this man is afraid of is that in addition to my 1.2 million naira that I get annually, I get stipends here, people support me, friend gives me some money, and this passes through my account. The fear is that if you do all of the calculations together, there is a tendency for you to have seen 2 million or 3 million naira passing through my account. So the government is likely going to come at me to say, all of this inflows through your account, you need to pay taxes. That's not how it works, all right? No one is going to ask you to come and pay taxes on gift. No one is going to ask you to come and pay taxes on people who supported you to cover certain expenses or stipends. That's not how it works. So you need to be earning regular monthly income, either as a paid employee or you are running your own business. If you are an employee, your employer do that obligation and do the calculation and nothing more. All right?
You don't have any business.
So if you are running your own business, you do your books, whichever way you do it. Maybe you do it through your bank statement if you don't have any accounting skill or you have someone else to help you do. There has to be a way by which you understand how you're running your business. And for as long as your revenue threshold is below that 100 million naira a year, which is the current threshold for which small businesses don't pay taxes, you say, thank you, Mr. Taxman, you submit your returns and there's no taxes to be paid. That's how it works. All right. Now, but for those who are eligible to pay taxes, either as an individual, as a company, the point I was making was that the government also uses data, and they could check, all of these records at the back end. If at any time they check those records and they see a discrepancy between what you have declared and what they think they are seeing, what they will do is to ask you questions. They will typically write you, in most cases this thing happen with the businesses. For those who are in paid employment, every year up until now, Lagos State Internal Revenue Services typically carries out an audit of companies with respect to their employees' pay as you earn taxes every year. But they don't go to the employees. They don't go and, freeze their bank account. They just talk to the employer to say, can you please reconcile how much you've paid to the staff and how much you have paid in taxes? And once that record is okay, that's fine. Then you move on. You've got to get to a point where there is a significant taxpayer who is defaulting and for which there is huge amount of data available to the revenue authority to be able to then say, oh, we don't agree, we need to go through the legal processes, and all of that. So, but the point you make earlier is also quite instructive, which is the point that beyond getting the citizens to pay taxes, beyond getting the citizens to do the right thing, I think it's also very critical, in fact, more critical now than before, that the government also continues to recognize the impact of what this social contract does to the citizen psyche. We can't get the citizens to pay taxes and not be as accountable, as transparent, as prudent in the utilization of those resources. Otherwise, we're going to get into this logjam every now and again. Taxpayer will ask you, what's government doing with my money? And they will, irrespective of the fact that it is illegal, they will use that as an argument to say, I'm also not going to pay taxes anyway, and it's just going to be a battle, of chasing the taxpayer and the taxpayer also feeding back. So it's got to be both sides. I think that's the point I'm making.
In closing, how much will narration help both the taxpayer and the taxman? Because there's a campaign around narration. Please, in fact, I saw one. I sent it to Mr. Oyedele. I just for the laugh said, but he said, you have in a month you have 40 transactions, and you wrote gift. Are you for Christmas? Talk about narration in 1 minute.
Well, I think there's an exaggeration in all of this. I think people are just apprehensive, people are just afraid. There is standard record keeping protocol that any businessman does anyways. That has always been the case. But your bank statement isn't just the only source of financial record. If you do proper narration in your bank statement, it's helpful to you. It's helpful when you pass it on to your bookkeeper. It's helpful when you engage an accountant to help you do that. So that's important and that's necessary. That's helpful. But it's not this way out of avoiding the taxman that people are saying. Let people calm down and just see how these things play out. Nobody's going to be chasing. Do you know the number of lines of transactions that taxman will need to be reading if all they want to be checking is just
I think it feels to me right. It feels to me right now that a lot of people who are scared. Nobody will even know they're spending any money at the end of the day. So, based on the data people like you have provided, Mr. Yomi Olugbenro, tax partner at Deloitte, thank you so much. At the end of January, February, March, we'll be able to do an assessment of how far we've come as far as the tax is concerned. And some of these fears have been allayed over removal of money and no removal of money. I deliberately didn't want to go to the Gazette issue because I leave that as a political conversation.
Absolutely.
But almost thank you, sir. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Pleasure to be here.
That's it on the program. Thank you so much for your time and company. And again, on behalf of Channels Television, we wish you a happy new year. We pray this year will be better for you than last year. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Good night.